1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome to the 5th installment of the glorious Gloria TV retreat in preparation for Advent, where we are walking along on the footsteps of the O-Antiphones that are sung at Vespers before Christmas. And I have a guess that these O-Antiphones give us a lead towards Christmas, so that we really reach the content of the mystery of that feast. Now, the 5th O-Antiphone speaks about, if you want to translate it that way, the morning star. O morning star, or in Latin, O Oriens. I am not convinced that the translation O morning star is a good translation. It may be a poetic translation, but the Latin O Oriens means really more than just morning star. Oriens is the ariser, if you want, or the East. And the East is an important place in the history of salvation. Remember Adam and Eve, when they were kicked out of paradise, they were kicked out towards the East. And from then on, humanity is looking for the paradise, searching for it, by walking west. So when we speak about those, or the one who comes from the East, we always speak about the one who searches for paradise. And the institution that is searching for paradise in this world is the Church. So, in the East are those people who have understood that they dwell in the shadow of death and sin and need to uncover their true place of being. Remember another thing, that the 5th O-Antiphone is related to the 5th sacrament, and the 5th sacrament is the sacrament of marriage. In marriage, something very important happens. Souls are created. The most precious materia prima that we have in this world. These are the stones with which the Church is built. So the 5th O-Antiphone is speaking about the building up of the Church through marriage. In our days, we live in a church that seems to have a lot of problems, and if you would mention the problems or tell people to list the problems, they would say things like, well, we don't have enough priests, or they would say, we don't have enough faith, or they would say, we have too many liberals. But believe me, the true problem of the Church at the moment is something else. The very basis, the very natural basis of the Church is undermined. And that natural basis of the Church, where everything begins, and this, what is the reason for all the rest? That is the family. And as long as we have few Catholic families, and those few Catholic families have only few children, all the rest of the Church is somewhat put on a foundation that will not hold. Remember another thing. In our days, the opinions are made. So it's not that you can just walk along and tell people Believe in Jesus Christ. You are in the shadow of sin. You must change your life. You must become different. People know beforehand what you want to tell them. And, worse than that, they know beforehand what they want to answer. So, mission, especially mission among the rich, is quite limited in our days. So therefore, I have sometimes the impression that the church that hopes to bring in people through mission and, as a matter of fact, doesn't do it, lives a little bit like the European nations who have no kids, and they hope that immigration will compensate for the lack of young population. But the church is built originally, the missionary church is built originally on strong families. Remember that St. Peter in Acts chapter 10 converted whole families. That's, by the way, the reason why we have baptism of children, because everybody came into the church, also children. Now, that basis can also be seen in other parts of the New Testament. Listen, St. Peter and St. Andrew were brothers, or St. John and St. James were also brothers, and so on among the apostles. So the church has always based itself on families and has drawn its strength from that families. I mean, you may know that as much as I do. There are families with many priests, uncles priests, sons priests, and so on. So that basic stock of Catholic families cannot just be replaced by randomly converting people on the street to the church. A business in which we are, especially in the rich countries, not extremely successful. So that fifth O-Antiphone makes an important point by pointing at the fifth sacrament, that is the sacrament of marriage. And it does it by starting with the words O Oriens, O East, O Ariser. That reminds me of a little passage in the Apocalypse of St. John the Evangelist. And in this Apocalypse, St. John speaks about the bowls of the wrath of God in chapters 15 and 16. And there is the sixth bowl that was poured out upon the great river of Euphrates, and the waters of that river dried up, so that the way was made free for the kings that come from sunrise. And I'm convinced that this passage here speaks about as well about marriage, and it speaks about the kings that come from sunrise, which is the children of the church, that are first and foremost produced in marriage. So if we speak in the O-Antiphone about the Oriens, the ariser, the one who is coming up, we speak about Catholic families. So the problem, the imminent and deadly problem of today's church is not that we don't have enough priests. Well, that is a big problem. But we don't have enough priests because we don't have enough Catholic families. And we don't have enough Catholic families with many children. That's the beginning and the foundation of the problem. And exactly there we have to start working if we really want that something changes in this church. Remember that the O-Antiphonen, O Oriens, O Ariser, or O Kings coming from sunrise, remember that that O-Antiphone is sung on the 21st of December. That is a special day in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the shortest day of the year. Or in other words, it is the darkest day of the year. And I would venture to come out with that thesis that we are somewhat in a dark time of the church, maybe in the dark time of the church, because the problems do not affect certain parts of the church, but basically the whole of it. And it is new in the whole history of humanity that faith is put generally on a big scale into a corner and is not allowed to develop anymore, not even to express itself, not even to come up with the cultural relicts of it, like Christmas tree. You're not supposed to say Christmas tree. You're not supposed to say Happy Christmas, and so on. So we live in a situation of incredible riches in big parts of this world that has basically, or is basically about to extinct the world. So in that point of biggest darkness, in that 21st of December of the history of the church, we sing the antiphon, O Oriens, which means, come along, you kings of the East, and bring along the new people of the church. So therefore, I have noticed many times in my life that young men have ventured to become priests, or young women to become sisters, and once they failed in that enterprise or realized that they had no vocation, they fall back into a very average life. Now, on one side, they wanted to give all they were and all they had to God and put their life into completely unusual situations. And suddenly, once they saw that this doesn't work, or that specific way of doing it is not their way of doing it, they just went back into ordinary little life, the way everybody is living it. Therefore, I have a good proposal for people who feel that they are not called to become priests, and I guess many are not called to become priests, or for those who are not called to become nuns. There are also many, I guess, don't feel that vocation. Then understand that you don't need a call to get married. People speak today about that call, I had the vocation of getting married. Hang on. Marriage is something that is written in our soul, in everybody's soul, in the soul of the priests, in the soul of the popes, in the soul of the cardinals. Remember that. You don't need to excuse yourself for getting married. You need to excuse yourself for becoming a priest. You need a vocation. If you don't have that vocation, you are not allowed to become a priest. But when it comes to marriage, you don't need to tell people, I have a vocation to get married. You just get married. That's your natural obligation. And that's the main scope of your life, to get married and to have children and to create those souls that will populate the church and hopefully also heaven, which is what makes marriage so incredibly important and so really unreplaceable replaceable by anything else. So if you understand that God doesn't call you to the priesthood or to the married life, then basically almost all of you know what you have to do. Get married. And the point of marriage is, according to the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, go and multiply. That's, according to the Bible, the first reason why you get married. And being part of the church, you have all the reason to multiply as much as you can. Because the more souls you have, the more seats up in heaven you will be able to fill. So that's the reason why we, those who are married, are here in this world. To collaborate with the church and with the priests in order to provide for those souls who are needed, that priests exist. And priests can be called because they are partly at least also called through the Holy Spirit in order to serve the people. Although the first reason for being a priest is to glorify God, and it's the first reason for everybody on this world. But then each of us has a specific vocation in a specific field. So if you want that there will be priests and that God calls them, you must first make sure that they are needed and that many families are calling for them because they need them to catechize and to sanctify their children. Therefore, this O-Antiphone, O Oriens, is a good one. It's a very good one, because it reminds us that after all the preceding antiphons, starting with O Wisdom, which is baptism, coming along with O Adonai, that is confession, and continuing with all the others, that they lead all up to the appearance of the church. And this church comes from the east on the search of the paradise, of this morning star. If you want to compare the church with that, the O-Antiphon says, splendor of light eternal. We are not here for ourselves, you know. We are here to be a star that is just reflecting the light of the sun. The light and the splendor of the morning star doesn't come out of itself. We, our own souls, are only an excuse, so that the light from the Sun of Justice can reflect in them and shine in the darkness of this world. That's the reason why the church is here, to show to the world the light of God. And Son of Righteousness, the church is called, because in the church, and in the heart of the church, and in the heart of every church members, the fires of the Holy Spirit burn. And they account for our righteousness, not our deeds. The way how we become righteous is baptism and confession, not pretending that we are able to keep the 10 Commandments. We are not. The 10 Commandments are only an excuse to show that we are sinners, and to make us sinners go to get the sanctifying grace somewhere else, namely in baptism and the confessional. The O-Antiphone, today's O-Antiphone continues, come and enlighten those who dwell in darkness and in the shadow of death. Naturally. How does the light, the Son of Righteousness, enlighten the people? Naturally. through the church. We are here to shine into the darkness of this world. Who would want to deny that? And the reason why we can do that is because God has chosen us to bring forth infallibly to the church His light, His Holy Spirit, the strength that changes sinners into saints. That's what the church is all about. When we do inside what we are supposed to do, then we will shine towards the outside. We have to take care of us in order to be able to take care of others. And there we have this terrible heresy when people say, well, you know, whether I go to church or not, that's not so important. It's really more important that we do good, that we are good to people. And if that were the case, and we were able to do that, we wouldn't need God. We wouldn't even need Jesus Christ or any salvation. But precisely because we are not good and not able to do what we are supposed to do, we need to start with the beginning, and to begin with the beginning. And the beginning is when we are baptized, when we receive the grace and confession, when we receive the Holy Eucharist, when we move on to confirmation, and when we fulfill our deeds in a Christian life, multiplying the souls that are needed, that the church can bloom and grow. Now, the life of the sacraments is the way how we can do good. Only the life of the sacraments is the way that tells us that if we go this way, we will do good. It's not that once it works out and twice it doesn't. These sacraments work, I told you before, ex opere operato, by the very performing of this sacrament. And this way, as long as we are in the sacramental life of the church, we will always do good, only good. So therefore, don't tell to people it's important to go out and do good to the people. No, go into the church and let God do good to you. And if that has happened, and He has lightened the fire of the Holy Spirit in your heart, then He will put you high up, like that city on the mount, and you will shine over a great territory, and you will attract many people into the sheepfold of the Lord. Oriens is a very good O-Antiphone, because it tells us about the sons of the kings of the East who come along from sunrise and enter and occupy the land. We speak about the church, who has to walk in great masses. And the basis and foundation for that is the family. And we priests, or the nuns, or all the others who are not married in this church, they all serve the same purpose. They serve the families. They serve the souls. They help the families who are often caught up in daily problems and daily life that very often is not very spiritual. They help these families to bring into them the fire of the Holy Spirit, the sunrise or the morning star or the sun of justice that comes in our lives and makes that we become fire, and that we turn others also into fire. Praised be Jesus Christ.